What is good, Counter-Strike fans? Welcome back to another episode of my HLTV Fantasy. Today, we're going to be talking about FISSURE, the playoff stage. Very interesting event so far, especially without Spirit and Vitality. I think this event is up for grabs for any of the leftover teams. However, I think there is one clear favorite that should win this, but we'll talk about that more in a little bit. But before we get started, let's take a look back at how I did in the group stage. And this is how I did. I got a top 26%, 10 points going towards my fall season 2025 standings. Decided to go with m0NESY as my one-off Falcons. I should have gone a little bit heavier on Falcons with how I thought they were going to play, and at least having m0NESY did me good enough. Decided to double up on G2 like everyone. Unfortunately, I picked the right G2 player in some bias, but the wrong double up in mobs, so kind of unfortunate there. And then Gamer Legion, if they would have made it to the next stage, I would have gotten more points. However, they let me down a little bit. Didn't expect much after hearing the news that Kersey was getting replaced mid-event, so it is what it is. Not bad for 10 points. The best value for money players, you can see 4 Falcon players up there, everyone except Kixan, Tessis, Kyosuke, m0NESY, and Nico are up there. Centaurus and Wakiria for Aurora, and then Marias and Zampayas for G2. The best team had Tessis, Kyosuke, Marias, Zampayas, and Huxi. So it was definitely doable to top this event. So it was a pretty not pretty common lineup, or a lineup that you would see a normal user pick as well. It wasn't like a completely random lineup as the top 1%, as the top number 1. So let's talk about the bracket for this event. In the upper side of the quarterfinals, we have G2 versus Mongols and Aurora versus Liquid. And the lower side of the quarterfinals, we have Furia and Astralis, and then Falcons versus Spain. Just speaking really quickly on who I expect to be candidates for this event. I expect G2 and Mongols and Aurora to be candidates from the upper side. And then from the lower side, I expect Furia and Falcons to be the other 2 candidates. In my opinion, Falcons have the easier side of the bracket, so they would be a team to primarily target here. But let's take a look at the matches individually and how the bracket would play out. G2 versus Mongol, I think this is the most 50-50 game. I can't really call a winner here. It really depends on how they feel on stage and in front of a live crowd. G2 do have Hunter, who will have some support in Serbia. Meanwhile, Mongols have taken this event as more of a practice. They haven't come in here, to win the event, while G2 are on a high after their previous Blast event win. So it's a 50-50. I'm going to lean with Mongols just because we've seen more consistency from them. While G2 are a bit of a honeymoon phase. I do expect it to last. However, I think this is where they might lose. Aurora versus Liquid. It has to be Aurora. Liquid is a dead team. However, will that relieve some of the pressure for them? It could. Twist is now going to FaZe. And in return, we might be getting a leech for Liquid. But I think Aurora, they started off this event really strong. They beat Astralis, Tyloo, and Furia in the group stage to go 3-0. So I think Aurora are here to, try to win this event. Centaurus has been one of the best players so far in the group stage. Furia versus Astralis. I have to lean Furia. They've been taking the last 2 matchups against Astralis pretty convincingly as well. Astralis just let go of a Stomp. They brought in Magis, who's been bottom fragging for them. So not a firepower upgrade, and you've seen kind of some frustration by Hooksy in a game where he was basically telling him to lock in. So Trolls don't come into this event with the best of form. Furia have looked fine, but they should be able to go for a third win against the Astralis here. And then Falcons versus Pain. Should I speak more about this? I mean, Falcons should beat Pain quite convincingly. Pain sometimes do step up against tougher opposition, but I just don't see it here. I think Falcons are too much to handle for Pain. So that was it up a semifinals of Mongols versus Aurora, and then Furia versus Falcons. Mongols, Aurora, again another 50-50. Mongols have been the better team so far, beating Aurora quite convincingly a couple times. But I feel like Mongols are not taking this event seriously. Aurora is. So I'm going to leave Aurora here. Why not take the chance on the Turkish squad? And there might be some Turkish support in Serbia, so you never know. And then Furia versus Falcons. Falcons should win that. I think Furia have hit a little bit of a ceiling. They need a little bit more output from Yuri and Jakinder for them to push through and beat Falcons, or Falcons for them to choke on themselves. So you never know. But I'm going to have my grand final be Aurora versus Falcons, and I'm going to have Falcons winning the grand final for their first event win. Finally. So let's take a look at the most picked players now. And people agree as well. I mean, Kicksen's getting chosen about 40% of the time, alongside with Tessis, Nico, and then Monesi around 20%. Kyosuke is a little bit of a differential here. And then you have 3 IGLs and Hunter, Major, and Hooksy, and then Techno to top off the most picked players. Now we can talk about the teams individually. So with Mongols, the pricing comes a little bit too high for me. 910 is a completer boy in my opinion, and Messinho as well at 208. Here you want to target players like Blitz, Techno, and Sensu. I would probably just pick one Mongols player, unless you're really certain that they will get to the finals or even win the whole thing. I think they're gonna have tough matchup after tough matchup, and they could get eliminated at any point in this event, either from quarterfinals all the way to the finals. So Mongols, a little bit of a wary on him, and I will not double up just because of the pricing. But going with one off, completely fine with me. For G2, I think G2's pricing is a little bit more reasonable. I think Heavy God and Mariez I would rule out just because they're a little bit too expensive, and you can get the same upside with players like Mouse and Zampayas. Mouse has been the worst player from G2 for this event, but you've seen what he can do and you've seen his ability. Just hope that he puts it all together in the playoffs if you want to go there. Zampayas has seen an uptick. However, he did farm a couple of the lower ranked teams here in this event. And then Hunter is super consistent at 198. So if you want to double up with G2, I don't mind. That's going to be tough for them as well to get to the grand finals, but they've shown that they can win an event. For Aurora, I think Centaurus at 219 is great value, even though he's a gold. He's been their best player for a little while now. He's been putting up really high ratings. He looks on right now. And with the matchup against Liquid and a chance to get to the grand finals, it could be worth going there. If you can't afford, I think Waxley and Wikidia are solid alternatives here. I would not go Jota. He hasn't been good for a couple events now. And then Major is fine if you want to double up here and you can't afford Waxley and Wikidia, but don't expect much from him. For Furia, I think it's kind of the same thing with like Aurora. You can go with Casarado as your carry. Otherwise, I would not get Malzoy, honestly. At that price, you think you can spend up on Casarado instead. Yuri is a little bit too expensive for his output. Again, he's been having a couple of poor events so far. So I would not go Yuri. I would rather go with Jakinder as my primary option here. Fallen is fine as well at 194, but Furia they're gonna have to get through Falcons probably to get to the grand finals. It can happen, but you definitely need to spend up a little bit more if you want to go here with Furia. For Falcons, I think you kind of have to double up with the way the bracket looks and the way that Falcons have been playing so far in this event. I think all 5 options are reasonable. I would say Kyosuke is a little bit too expensive, however, but he is the differential, so you can go there if you want to go for a top 1%. Otherwise, Tessa's been really strong, kicks in as well, and you can pair him up with either Nico and Monasi. My favorite combination is probably Nico and Kixen, just because you have that carry potential while also having some value as well. For Pain, I don't expect them to be Falcons at all, but if you want to go here, DGT and NQC have to be your 2 primary options. Otherwise, save some money with Big Osera. But yeah, would not pick from Pain because they might get destroyed by Falcons. For Astralis, they have a chance against Furia. However, it's not gonna be much if they then bomb up against Falcons. So, will not spend too much on them. I think Magix is a no-go at 177. I think my favorite option is Stair, as he's shown an improvement without Stop being here. So Stair would be the carry option. If you want to save some money, Hooksy is also very solid as well. You're just kind of hoping that he doesn't get destroyed by Furia, and he puts up good enough rolls and points just for him to be worth it at 173. And then for Liquid, I don't expect them to be Aurora, but if you want to go here, your double up will have to be Naf and Twist. They've been the 2 best value, the 2 Canadians combining to, well, I mean, Twist is the carry, but Naf has been solid enough and would not want to spend up more for Ultimate and would not want to spend less for Shuhi, who's been really, really poor. And now that we looked at it, the players, this is my team for this event. So I think doubling up on Falcons is kind of a must. But I think because a lot of people will double up on Falcons, if you want to go differential here and hope that they do a typical Falcons and bomb out, then it's completely fair. I just have to go with Kixen and Nico here for a potential carry in the finals. And then on the other side of the bracket, I'm picking Santaris. I have Aurora at least making the same finals and doing quite well there and having a chance to make it to the finals. And if it's Santaris, then I get a massive carry into the grand finals against potentially Falcons. So that's a great option there. And then Hooksy is my little cheap player. I'm not expecting much out of him, but if he does solid enough against Furia and maybe wins this game and doesn't completely bottom frag against Falcons, then he could be a good value there to allow me to get Santaris. And then my final spot is up in the air, but I'm going to go for Techno for now. He hasn't been good at this event. He's been going back to his usual, but I was impressed by him in the WC. He's been getting more lurk rolls, so could potentially give him better ratings against a tougher opposition. So I'm going to go with Techno there. I think this spot is definitely up for grabs. Everything else is locked in. Techno, I can show you here. Techno can be Miles with some Pious from G2. So if I want to go with a G2 player, I can go with these 2. Techno could also be Jota if I wanted to double up on Aurora, making it to the grand finals. Or it can be a Fury player. However, that's more unlikely, especially because I have Hooksy on there. But yeah, I think I'm going to take my chance on Techno and kind of spread my risk a little bit more with either Aurora or Mongols making it to the grand finals. Should lead me to a solid top 20% and hopefully some solid points coming my way. I think Santaris is a great differential. I don't think many people will be going with him. And yeah, this is going to be my team for this event. Let me know what you think of it in the comments section down below. post your teams as well. I'm looking for some teams and some inspirations, and I want to give some advice. But if you follow what I say, basically you'll probably have a good team in general. But yeah, good luck, have fun, and see you for the next time.